Hello and welcome to AviaDev Insight Africa, the podcast offering a window to the world of African aviation with your host, John Howell, CEO and founder of AviaDev Africa. Today we are going to be focusing on a carrier that has recently announced it will be launching service to East Africa. That carrier is AirAsia and the route in question is Nairobi, Kuala Lumpur. The first flight will take place on the 15th of November. It will be a 4-weekly service on an A330-300 featuring 12 business class seats and a whopping 365 standard economy seats. Today, we're going to discover why Nairobi, why now, and exactly what the plan is to serve this market. And the airline, if you haven't guessed yet, is AirAsia. So to do this, I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Paul Carroll, the Chief Commercial Officer. Paul has over 20 years of experience in the industry, gathered at numerous global airlines. So Paul, a warm welcome to the podcast and a warm welcome to the African aviation community.
Thank you very much, John. It's great to be here this afternoon and looking forward to it.
Fantastic. So before we dive into kind of the specifics of the route and really getting into the nitty gritty, I think a lot of our listeners won't be overly familiar. They'll have heard about AirAsia. They maybe have seen Tony Fernandez. They've seen the brand somewhere in the world. But talk to us about the AirAsia offering and the business model and just the general concept.
Yeah, sure. AirAsia as a group, we're Asia's leading low-cost carrier. We operate a total fleet size of 250 aircraft that comprises A321s and A330s, which we will use to serve the Nairobi market. I guess prior to the pandemic, we were carrying about 80 million passengers per year, and we expect that to come back to pre-pandemic levels this year. And our ambition is obviously to be the lowest fare airline in the market, offering the most extensive network throughout North Asia, the CIS countries, and now into Africa. So I think it's exciting times. We're coming out of the doom and gloom of the pandemic, and we're ready for growth.
Fantastic. Yeah, 80 million passengers. I think that's more than the market almost when it comes to the African side of things. It's absolutely massive. So yeah, I've had the pleasure of taking AirAsia within ASEAN, within the region, and it's always been great and very functional. So there's a lot that people can learn, but this is a very different product, obviously with the long haul side of things. So let's start right at the beginning. Why Nairobi? When first place on mainland Africa, obviously there were forays in the past onto the Indian Ocean islands with AirAsia X, but never into the mainland. So why Nairobi, and why is now in 2024, obviously in November this year, why is now the right time to launch into Kenya and into Africa?
Yeah, so I think, look, the key foundations of the AirAsia group are deeply rooted in the ASEAN region. Obviously, we have huge coverage across Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia. But I guess the management mandate was to explore beyond ASEAN. We also have pretty strong coverage in India and China. I think coming out of COVID, the market is looking for something new. And I think we were very keen to stretch our reach beyond just this region. I think it first started with the launch of the Almaty market in Kazakhstan in March of 2024. And I think we are consistently evaluating new regions for growth. And Africa has been in our thoughts for probably the last 2 years once we started scaling up after the pandemic. Look, we see it as a very underserved kind of geographical region, Africa as a whole. I think you would know there's very limited connectivity into Asia. I think you have an Ethiopian service into Singapore and tagged onto KL, and obviously a Kenya Airways service into Bangkok. The reason we were interested in Nairobi, we felt there was two-way demand on the market. We felt AirAsia is a very strong marketing company. We felt we could build relatively seamlessly the demand into Nairobi, particularly for leisure, safari. We have a very strong track record of building the destination. We also felt there's a big outbound market from Kenya in terms of students, traders, and obviously bringing all those things together, we feel there's a big connectivity advantage over the KL hub. I think just to put it into context, we have 80 aircraft based in Kuala Lumpur. We operate to over 130 destinations. So there's a huge advantage in terms of driving network traffic over KL, as opposed to the incumbents who don't have that network strength in Asia we have. So all of those things brought together, we felt that Nairobi was the best choice as our first destination in Africa.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And as I said earlier, of course, the business model is quite different to what people are used to, but not entirely. And we had this sort of debate about, obviously, there has been low cost domestic regional travel in Kenya for a few years with some of the carriers there. And also, they're quite forward thinking in terms of it was where mobile money with M-Pesa and these type of things was created, the whole idea of mobile wallets and this sort of thing. So I'm really interested to know, since you announced it, which was only the week after AviaDev, so it was only, say, 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago from when we're talking now, what's the reaction been? Is it been broadly in line with what you expected? And how are you reaching these people in Kenya and in East Africa with the communication? What are you doing?
Yeah, I would say the response has been pretty strong. We went with a big launch in the Malaysia market, in our core markets in ASEAN. To be totally transparent, given the political situation in Kenya, we've been a bit guarded in terms of ramping up our efforts in Kenya, in Nairobi specifically. We are hopeful that the situation will calm down over the next couple of weeks and months, and we are planning some big activation in the Nairobi market, the Kenyan market, to really sell our network story in Nairobi. So I think myself and the team are planning a visit. We're actually supposed to go next week, but we've had to defer it. But it's something at front of mind. We do plan to make a visit and have a launch on the ground in Kenya over the next few weeks.
Yeah,
But I
great.
mean, the response
There's
from
still
the
time.
Malaysia, the response from the Malaysian market and the network, particularly Australia, China, has been fantastic. We're seeing pretty strong forward bookings from November onwards. We've been very encouraged by that, and we will continue to build awareness as we come closer to the inaugural flight.
Yeah, that's quite exciting, because I think when we first spoke about this concept, the big driver was going to be outbound Africa into Asia. And that's something that I brought this up. We do a monthly roundup of all the new routes that are being talked about or being launched or closing down or increasing frequencies. And the analysts that I had on this month, and it only came out earlier this week, they were saying that in your press release and when you announced it, you want 156, or you're expecting 156,000 passengers in the first year on the route. And they were saying, but the top 15 markets from Nairobi to Asia is only 202,000 annual passengers. So there's obviously going to need a massive amount of market stimulation, because I'm assuming you're not planning on just taking market away. It's a case of creating a new market, right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. But again, I just want to go back to the large scale we have in this part of the world. I think the point to point market is obviously it's unserved. Really, there's a strong lack of direct flights from Nairobi into Asia. So that's one inhibitor to traffic volumes growing. And then we have 130 plus destinations to offer onwards. So I think the market is, yes, it's stimulation is absolutely required, but we're confident with our network, with our brand, and with our pricing that we will be able to deliver what we've committed, and that 156,000 passengers per annum. We're absolutely confident that we can deliver that.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. And just to dive in a bit deeper into the Chinese market and look at how important that is in this particular route as well. Again, the guys that I was talking to, largest market to Kenya from China is Guangzhou, but they were saying that demand to and from Nairobi is lower now, or was lower in 2023 than it was pre-pandemic. And of course, there's competition to these routes with, say, KQ to Bangkok to Guangzhou, etc. How do you see the Chinese market being as either an endpoint for these outbound African travelers, or obviously as an inbound tourism market or trader market or business market? What level did the Chinese market play in your decisions?
I think, look, we are the largest foreign airline in China. We have from KL, we have 4 flights a day to Guangzhou. I think our connectivity into China will promote that connecting traffic. China has, yes, absolutely been slower to recover versus, I suppose, other points within our network. But again, we're not investing in Nairobi short term. We're in it for the long term. It's my expectation the China market will recover. It's a bit slower, but it's just too big an aviation market not to get back to pre-pandemic levels and beyond. So I think we're very confident that the connectivity is in place. We've designed the schedule for Nairobi to make sure that all points have strong bi-directional transit connect. And we're very hopeful with our marketing branding efforts, we will stimulate that traffic to and from China at very affordable fares. So that's where our value proposition is for the Chinese market.
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing that's come through already today is it's because of this amazing network effect that you've had strong interest from like Australia. I totally didn't think that, but my sister lives in Perth. So she might be saying, hey, I quite fancy a safari. It's not something you can do in the immediate network. So she can nip over to KL from Perth and then obviously connect onto Nairobi, and it suddenly becomes a lot more affordable.
Just to add to that, John, it's quite interesting you say that, because in terms of our forward bookings for connecting traffic, actually Perth seems to be the strongest performer in terms of connecting volumes we're seeing on our forward bookings, which is quite apt in terms of what you're saying. Yeah, the Australian market is definitely important for Nairobi as well. I think when I was there with the team a couple of months ago, we got good insights into the student movement in Australia. One segment we're certainly looking to target as we come closer into the inaugural flight.
Yeah, Australia, we could talk about that all day because, of course, SAA have launched back into Perth direct. And it's been a very strong route for them traditionally and still is. And there's huge connection between South Africa and Australia as well. So I'm sure you'll be picking up passengers that will be coming through Nairobi and then getting on a different airline to get down to SA or other parts of Africa as well. So it's all these little bits that add up that are going to fill the seats because, as I said, it's not a small aircraft, the A330-300 that you use with 365 economy seats. So the only other question I've got on the actual launch is, why start with 4 frequencies a week? Is this just an AirAsia thing that if we don't do at least 4, there's no point doing it? Or did you just feel, what's the reasoning behind 4?
So I think, look, again, if you ask my boss, he wanted to do daily. So we have to control him a little bit. No, I think, look, in terms of the answer to that is again, back to connectivity. I think we felt a minimum of 4 flights a week to hit the departure arrival banks in KL was an optimal level of frequency, because onto the narrow body markets, we are multiple daily frequencies as well. So we felt if we were going after the connecting traffic, we had to start with a 4-weekly product. And I think, look, if the demand justifies it with that level of frequency in KL, I think we can get this market to a daily service over time. So I think it was really driven by the connectivity as well. And we've had some good learnings on the seasonality as well on the point-to-point market. Typically, we're seeing some good demand strength through the migration months and forward booking. We are expecting the outbound Kenya market to book in later. I think that's just the nature of the trader movement. It typically doesn't pre-book so far in advance. But certainly we're seeing the migration period quite well. So we're open for sale through to the end of October 2025. So I think there's plenty of learnings we're taking from the forward bookings in terms of segments, seasonality as well.
Yeah, we'll come back to the conversation around the sort of distribution model. But just before we do that, obviously when an outbound African traveller arrives in KL, they've got this incredible network with AirAsia to serve that last mile destination. But that isn't the case for anybody arriving in Nairobi, right? AirAsia does not have a network in Africa to distribute people around Africa. Do you have any plans to interline, to have some sort of partnership with the African airlines? Or is it really just, look, like we're going to start with point to point and they can work it out when they land in Nairobi?
I think we do have plans. It's going to be something in the phase 2 of our expansion into Africa. We are talking to some airlines already. It is in our thoughts as well. Yeah, we are planning for an interline arrangement with an airline to be disclosed. I can't disclose it now, but it's certainly something we are considering.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and it's also encouraging. And it was also encouraging to say that your boss, as you say, was so bullish that wanted to go daily from launch, which I think is really encouraging for the industry, because what they want and what we all want is more connectivity and more opportunity. And by bringing down the price and increasing competition, you can encourage more people to fly. And obviously that is great for Kenya, especially with what it's going through at the moment. So in terms of the distribution sales model, just to come back to that, a lot of the sales, I'm assuming what you want to do is you want people to be booking direct through your app, through your website. You've talked about the traders, which is going to be your outbound Kenyan market. There may be not necessarily used to doing it this way. There's going to be a lot of sort of education's the wrong word, but just pointing people in the right direction, etc. How do you see that, and how are you going to get into people's minds when they're thinking of booking? And how do you see the kind of travel agency third party element playing here? Because that is still a very significant part of the business in Africa.
No, absolutely. Look, it's a new continent for us. It's a new market for us. I think as a business, we're typically about 80% direct to our own website. We are absolutely eyes wide open that the Nairobi market is going to take time to build brand awareness in that market. So look, we have appointed a GSA in Kenya, and that GSA will be responsible for distributing our tickets to sub-agents within the market as well, until we reach a point where we feel we have awareness in the market that the passenger has the confidence to book direct through AirAsia Move over time. That's going to take, we expect it's a journey. We expect that to take time. And in the interim, we have our partner GSA signed up in Kenya.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think it's very important. So it's heartening to hear that, because as I say, we want to see the route launch and be successful and go from strength to strength, and obviously support the continent's connectivity. So I think, thank you for being so open today, and we wish you all the best. It's been great the last few months just chatting about the opportunity of Kenya with you guys, and now to have you on the podcast is great. And of course, to have the team with us at AviaDev was great as well. So we'll try and get you along to Zanzibar next year, Paul. You need to come to Zanzibar for AviaDev 25.
Absolutely. Maybe at that stage we'll have a tag flight from Nairobi to Zanzibar. You never know. Thanks, John. It's been great. Look, it's been a very eye-opening experience, I think, in terms of myself and the team went there. We had very strong engagement with the government officials, regulatory authorities, and they were also supportive. We are very excited to enter the Nairobi market in November, and I think the team will be spending a lot more time in Africa, selling the AirAsia story, building up our brand awareness. And I think the opportunity is fantastic. You know what I mean? I think we have a very strong track record of building destinations that, people previously never dreamed of going to. So I think this will be the start. I hope it's not the end. There's a lot more we are evaluating in Africa, West Africa, further points in East Africa, and even Southern Africa once we get the fleet capability to do so. I think we are taking new generation aircraft over the next 5 years, and that's going to give us a lot more opportunity and capability to connect all ports in Africa. So we're excited.
Yeah, we're excited too to watch you on this journey and support you in whatever way we can too. So I think the east side obviously made sense as a first stopping point from a geographic perspective, from a market perspective. And absolutely, we ran AviaDev in Nairobi in 2023. And the attitude there of the country generally in the associations and the regulatory bodies is competition is good. And whilst there's a national carrier, they are open to allowing other carriers access into the market, something that we'd like to see everywhere, of course. But they understand that the bigger picture is more important. And there is room for everyone. KQ is making strides to cut its losses and is now operating at a profit from an operating perspective. And they don't have to lose for you to win. We can just stimulate a whole new market and everybody can work together. So we're excited to see what this does to the Kenyan aviation landscape. And obviously, I'm sure the average person on the street there in Nairobi is going to be really excited when they see some of the launch fares and the product that you guys have put out there, because it's something that they will never have seen before. So we wish you all the best over the next few months, and we'll obviously catch up ahead of the inaugural flight as well, and then look forward to hopefully hearing about more routes in Africa on the network being added. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
No, that's
Paul.
great.
Really
And again,
it.
I just want to say a big thank you to AviaDev as well. Your team are very supportive, and obviously we're always happy to learn about a new continent, and we are very supportive of improving connectivity and contributing to Africa's growth and success going forward. Big thank you to you and the team, and I think the team had a great time in Namibia as well. I think a lot of learnings came out of it, and we'll continue to learn and contribute to the network development in Africa.
Yeah, thank you for believing in the continent, and I'm sure it will be a massive success, and we wish you all the best with your forthcoming trip and look forward to seeing all those bookings come in. So yeah, So thank you, Paul, and thank you everybody out there for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If there's somebody in your network that you think would benefit from having a listen, do us a favor. It doesn't cost anything. Just hit that share button now. Share it with somebody on WhatsApp or on social media or wherever it may be. Get them to have a listen to it as well, and leave us a review or subscribe so we can be found by even more people. We're going to be taking a little break with the podcast over the Northern Hemisphere summer, so I can have a bit of time off. But we'll be back in September with some new podcasts, some new guests, some new formats as well. We'll see you all for that very soon. And I'll see you in person soon, I'm sure, as well, Paul. Thanks all for joining us. See you for the next episode very soon. Bye-bye.